things that, especially us as blacks, that we have a stereotype that we can only run, we can only sing, we can only dance. Those are the three things where we can box. We can only be entertainers, we can only be on the front stage. Do you understand? But then the people that are the bosses of these entertainers that we don't see are worth times 100 what the entertainers worth. So to me, it's still slavery. It's still slavery. It's just that you're just a well-paid slave. My name is Darren Brown. Some people call me Darren Bond. I'm into real estate development. When I got into real estate development, I want to say I was around 28. I do think age is definitely a factor. I think real estate is something you have to enter with some key wisdom, and that's through experiences that you've been in life. Real estate is not something, it's not a very easy thing to get into if you don't have a general understanding about business. The barriers to entry are so high. You know, it's not just like, buying merchandise and selling merchandise. It's a lot more components. There's like 1,000 components that go into real estate. So your mind needs to be exercised to even down to memory, because you're talking about 1,000 different things after you put together at the same time, and time is probably the most expensive part of real estate. So you can't afford to make certain mistakes that you can afford to make in going to DHL and sending somebody a package a day late. It won't kill your business. But in real estate, 1 day is worth 6 weeks. You just have to have a basic understanding about business before you enter something like real estate. So age is definitely a factor. Kind of child I was in the classroom, I was a very quiet child. I wasn't an outspoken child at all. I think because I always knew that my thoughts, I always was a bit more mature than my age. So a lot of my thoughts that I had weren't like my peers' thoughts, so I was a very quiet child. I wasn't mischievous in school. I was very, very calm and collected, Now, in terms of the other part of your question, I think it's 100% needed to keep the child in you. Is the person that asks questions, that takes risks. That's the child in you. Do you understand? Somebody that doesn't really care about, not necessarily consequences, but failing. Children aren't afraid to fail. I remember stuff we used to do as children, like you would go to the roof of an abandoned building and you would jump off it, not caring about the fact that you might break your ankle, not caring about the fact you might dirty your clothes when you went home to your mum. But that child in you is what allowed you to say, I'm taking a risk, I'm going to jump. You didn't care. So I think everybody has to keep that inner child in them, because the older we get, the more responsibilities we get. We become a lot more cautious about taking risks. So it's very important to keep child in. I like to at least do something towards my goals every day. Monday to Sunday, something has to be contributing towards my goals. A typical day for me, I wake up at 5:30. I get to the gym at about 6:30. I like to, when I wake up, I like to pray. I like to listen to at least 2 or 3 gospel songs, and then I go to the gym. When I go to the gym, I train for about maybe 1 hour, 1 hour, 15 minutes. Finish that, come home. So what I do is I like to read at least 30 pages before I start my day. I'll get ready for work. I'll go into the office. Depending on my day, I can finish maybe 6, 7, 8, 9. It depends on how much needs to be done. But 100% daily, I feel very unproductive if I don't do something closer towards my goal. So if it's, my goal is to change somebody's life, it's that, have I called that person? Have I texted that person? Have I texted them to see if they're okay? Have I communicated it? It's always good to have, when you wake up, to have a purpose. Because when you have a purpose, you don't feel like you have enough time. You know, I look at some people when they're like, I'm bored. And I'm like, how the hell could you be bored? Because there's so much you can do. Pick up a book, read, you know, call somebody that you haven't spoken to in 6 months, find out how they are. There's so many pieces of the puzzle to life, I think, that we ignore, you know, and I think that when you accept that, okay, fine, your purpose is more than just to wake up and go to work, you make sure that you fill in time with productive things to do. This doesn't even relate to just real estate, it relates to any business. Hands down, it relates to any business. The number one thing is discipline, 100%. I think people underestimate how important discipline is. You know, when I was growing up, my mom used to always tell me, oh, Darren, at least pray for 10 minutes a day, read for 10 minutes a day. And I never used to understand it when I was younger, because it's like, why do I need to read? I'm going to school. I'm going to go from school from 8:30 to 4. I'm going to be reading the whole day. But what I started to realize is that she was instilling some core principles of discipline. You know, my mom used to say to me, Darren, make sure you iron your shirts on Sunday. So I used to iron 5 shirts. And I'm thinking, why iron 5 shirts when I iron 1 shirt the morning of going to school? I never used to understand it. But it's only now, at my age now, I realize how important that was. Because what it was doing is it was teaching me to always be prepared. It was teaching me to always be prepared. But at the time, it was like a burden, you know? So I think discipline is the number one factor for anybody that's getting into business. And that's discipline in every aspect of your life, where you eat, where you drink, your balance, your work and play balance. Don't just always work, because when you always work, you don't become efficient. You need a balance of enjoying yourself to make you also appreciate why you work. If you go out, if you like to go out, socialize with friends, go socialize with friends. But just know that the next morning, if that's what you do, if you're going to say, okay, fine, I'm going to sacrifice 8 hours of my life for enjoyment, then make sure the next day you have a plan as to how you plan to balance that. Because enjoyment is also a slippery slope. If you're not careful, you can over-enjoy. So discipline is number one. Number 2 is observing. Observing, I think, is one of the things that none of us take time to do. Observing your field is so important, because it's through observing that you're able to execute. And observation, sometimes, the reason it's so, what I find it so important is because when you observe, you're watching from the sidelines. You know, you're not playing the game, you're observing. And I did an interview the other day where I basically said to somebody that the people that always go far in life are the people that watch the game from the sidelines. They don't play. They don't play the game. They watch the game from the sidelines, and then they observe how the players are playing. And then they start to realize, or a coach, you'll go into a pub somewhere, and then the best coaches are the guys in the pub with a big stomach watching the TV, because they're watching the game from the sideline. They're probably doing things that the coach can't even see he should have done, because he's in the game, so he can't. But they're making decisions because they're not attached to what's going on. And it's the same thing. You can always give advice, the best advice to somebody when you're not in the situation. But then when you're in the situation yourself, you don't practice what you preach. So observing is definitely number 2. Number 3, I would say hard work and dedication. I know it sounds very cliche, but it's the truth.
Hard work! Hard work! Hard work! Hard work!
It is the truth. Hard work and dedication, and knowing why you're doing what you're doing. In fact, I want to put those all as number 3. Knowing hard work and dedication and purpose, I want to put them all in one. It's so important that you have to know exactly why you're doing it. If you're just doing it, you don't get the best out of it. But if you know why you're doing it, you always get the best out of it, because you know why you're doing it. You know, so real estate, I felt, was my thing, because when I was growing up, I always used to enjoy driving past, old buildings, seeing them be demolished, seeing a building come back up. I used to enjoy that. You know, I remember sometimes after school, I would walk to building sites to see how far they had progressed. That was my thing, you know? So as soon as I had the opportunity to be in that same field, I spent a lot of time observing, asking questions, because it enabled me to get a good understanding of what I was going to get involved in, you see? So I think those are the three main things I would advise. I would say become your product. You know, become your product, because people believe in you when you believe in yourself. That's, I think, what helps. So for instance, if you're planning to sell your home, okay, when somebody comes to view your home, it's like when somebody comes to view homes, when real estate agents come into your house, you will never leave it dirty. It would never be dirty. It's always going to be in the top shape, as if you just built the house when you want to sell something to somebody. But you should also be a representation of your home. So it makes it more believable. So people believe in your product. Things are only valuable when the person selling it also looks valuable. That's the only time things become valuable. You'll never go into a Rolls Royce showroom and see a guy in slippers trying to sell you a Rolls Royce. It will never happen. You know, you'll never buy a suit from somebody if they're in a t-shirt and jeans. They are also wearing a suit. When you go into a suit store, they're wearing a suit. And they're wearing a suit that you look at them and you say, wow, I want to look like this guy. And you won't say it to him, but you'll say, oh, I'm looking for something for a wedding. I'm looking for something for a, engagement or whatever. And the guy will look at you and he'll take you straight to a section. And you believe in him because he looks like how you want to look like. You know, when you go into a department store, all the women that work up in the makeup department, they're all wearing red lipstick. They're all very heavily made up. They all smell perfect, because they are saying to you, this is how you'll look if you buy my product. So you have to believe and become your product. Otherwise, nobody's going to believe in you, you know. So you should take a lot of time in your personal image, your personal brand. That is a selling point for your product. Whatever it is secondary, because people look at you first before they look at what you have to sell. It's that simple. Having a team is probably one of the most important parts. Having a team that can give you constructive criticism. I believe a team should consist of three things. The first one, it should be somebody that's ahead of you. The second should be somebody that you're competing with on a friendly basis. The third should be somebody that you're teaching. Teachers become better when they teach more. That's how teachers become better. You learn more as a teacher when you teach somebody. And also you learn from watching what the person ahead of you is doing. That's just simple science. That's what happens. So I think in your team, you should have people that can give you constructive criticism on how they feel you can do better. Okay. You should have somebody that you aspire to be or aspire to be like. And then you should have also somebody that you're teaching, because when you teach them, it also inspires you to do better, because that you know that somebody's watching you, so you can't slack, you know. So I think team is very, very important. Living in London wasn't the easiest of things. I remember at the age of 16, I made a decision that I was going to do things that all young boys, or most young boys, do in London to get money. You know, I'll be very honest. At 16, the reason I made that decision was because on my 16th birthday, my mum gave me £10, right, for my 16th birthday. And she cried. You know, she cried in front of me and said, look, this is all I can give you. And I had said that, well, to myself. I mean, I took the £10. And with that £10, what I actually went and bought her, like, vegetables and stuff for the house, right? And when I did it, she was like, why did you use that money to buy that? That's your birthday present. And I was like, well, at the end of the day, if you can only give me £10, then it means that I don't need it. I don't deserve it, right? From that day, I made a decision that I was never going to be poor again. It was that simple. I'm not doing it. Because I saw how my mother, who is my provider at the time, reacted to not being able to provide. And it's not that she wasn't even providing. She's providing, but these are extra bonuses in life that we get, that we take for granted. So for your mother on your 16th birthday, which, you know, growing up in the UK, that's a big birthday, sweet 16. Like, yeah, people having flashing lights and balloons, and and you're giving £10, like, it's a big wake-up call, because it's like, this is the first introduction into adulthood. I got involved in a lot of things that I don't regret them, but it was a part of who I am today. That's what then turned on my business mind, you know, because my business mind was that demand and supply became so significant to me. Business is only significant when you live it. That's the only time it becomes significant. A lot of us, we can look at businessmen or businesswomen and be like, I want to be like them, but they don't fully understand the core principles that goes through somebody's mind. And it could be something as simple as you have a pair of Jordans, right? And you bought the Jordans for $100, but you can see that these Jordans, they're going to sell out. So I'm going to hold on to these Jordans and I'm going to sell them for $1,000 when the demand is high. Those core principles, until you actually interact in business, you'll never understand them, you know, and those core principles, they stick with you for life. So from 16, like I said, I got involved in all sorts of street stuff in London. The age of 18, I started becoming worried about my future, because and 18 is young to worry about your future, but I started worrying about my future because the same reason I got involved in what I was getting involved in, I started to ask myself, well, if I get caught, how am I going to be able to give back and provide for the same people I'm saying that I'm providing for? Because God forbid something happens, how do you provide for them? So it's almost like a fake thing we tell ourselves that, oh yeah, I'm doing this so I can provide. But then when you look at the consequences, you're not providing. You become a burden, because now the person, you're not in a position to make money. The person has to spend money to come and see you. They have to give you money for your canteen that you have to buy every week money. Now they have to give you money that you can call them. It's counterproductive. So at 18, I went to Costco. I was at Costco with my aunt, and I went to Costco and I started seeing all these different products, and I was like, wow, wholesale this, that, wholesale that. I spoke to my dad. I called my dad in Ghana. He was living in Ghana at the time. And I was like, Dad, how much does this go for? How much does that go for? And he started giving me the prices of different things. And I was like, well, wow, if I get washing powder, commercial washing powder, and I'm able to supply hotels because they're paying way over what I could get it for, I have a business. That's what I'm saying, the core principles of business. So I called him back and I said, look, I want to start sending over washing powders and paints. And he was like, yeah, it's a great business. Let's do it. So I was like, okay, cool. We sent off my first, I think it was about 3 containers of washing powders and paints. It got here, but then what happened was I started to realize that you can't depend on others to do your business. So I started to see that, wow, okay, fine. I've invested all this money into a business to try and grow, but I've left it in the hands of people that won't necessarily look after the business as if it was my own. You know, so I started coming back and forth to Ghana to kind of see the consignment so I can make sure they go into the hotels. But it just wasn't working. And it wasn't working because hotels, the way they work is they take 60 days credit. So you're already the product, but you have to wait 60 days before you get your money. But it also takes 6 weeks to purchase and supply back. So you're talking about a 12-week cycle where you don't have no money in your hands to basically re-up and send it back to them. Do you understand? So I started to realize, wow, if I'm not careful, this business is going to swallow me. The hotels are cool. They get something for free. They use it, not free, but they use it for 60 days and then they pay me if they feel like it. If it goes to 90 days, I can't say nothing. So I started to realize that was not a feasible business to me because I wasn't in the position to have that capital to maintain the business. So that was my first connection in business to Ghana. Then I kept on coming to Ghana Christmas, summers, and I started to see a change. Like, you know, one building will pop up here, then this would pop up there. Then when you go, is now rather than having 2 places to eat, there's 5 places to eat. I started to see all the different changes. Even people from all over the world were coming to Ghana. So I started to ask myself, well, what am I missing here? Because there could be something I'm really missing here. You know, and this was around the age of, 20, 21. I'm like, what am I missing? So then, I got caught up in some issues. And 2 years later, I came to Ghana and I saw that, wow, Ghana's changed even from when I was 19, 20. it's changed drastically again. And I'm like, there's no way that I'm missing this boat again. It's impossible. Things were more expensive. Oh, land that cost $20,000 now costs $100,000. I was like, there's no way that I'm gonna miss this again. At 24, I decided to move to Ghana. And when I moved to Ghana, again, I tried to get involved in real estate, underestimating, I think we touched on that at the beginning of the interview, underestimating what it takes to get involved in real estate. I was young, I was hungry. So I said, no problem. I got the land, partnered with the owner of the land, said, look, let's build 24 apartments, only to find out that the land, he didn't have full ownership of the land. And the documents weren't, there was just a whole bunch of issues with the documents. But my youth caught me in that situation. My ignorance caught me in that situation, and my lack of experience in the business I was getting involved in caught me. I didn't spend time to observe. That's why I touched on observation. I didn't spend time to observe how things worked. I just wanted to get in and I said, look, I just want money. That's all. I don't care. The lawyer at the time, who's still a very good friend of mine, when we were going to court over this litigation of the building and stuff, he said to me, Darren, look, you're a young guy. You've just moved to Ghana. I would advise that you don't pursue this guy. It's like, what the hell are you talking about? My money's there. I'm from England. So it's like, listen, we're going to catch this guy. We're going to persecute this guy. He's stolen my money. But he's like, Darren, listen, it don't work like that. He said, look, all it takes is some small, to the judge. And I was like, what the hell are you talking about? The guy's wrong. I'm right. Like, to cut a long story short, he was like, listen, you're going to spend more money in court fees than what you've invested in the building. This guy is still a very good friend of mine today. Very good friend of mine, because he didn't have to say that. He could have taken my money for 3-4 years and watched me collapse, but he didn't. Do you understand? He saw that I was hungry. I wanted to do stuff. Moving on, about a year later, I started to realize that, well, if I want to do real estate, you don't get paid until somebody moves in, turns on the air conditioner, turns on your lights, and pays you rent or pays for the house. And I'm like, where the hell am I going to get all this money to put up a building or to put up some houses and then now wait for somebody to come and move and pay? And where am I going to do that? How? That's when I got into nightclubs, because I was like, okay, fine. Nightclubs allowed me to get money weekly. Do you understand? It allowed me to get money weekly, and that's why I got involved in that business. Not because I loved nightclubs and stuff. In fact, when I was in London, I used to go out, but not to the point where you would say, oh, I can imagine Darren owning a club one day. Nah, I just saw an opportunity. I would go out and there was very limited places to go. So I was like, well, let me open a nightclub where people can come, socialize, network, this, that. But my purpose of opening a nightclub wasn't because of the money. It was because of the network that I was gonna get. Because I started to realize that in Ghana, if you don't have a network, you cannot succeed. It's that simple. You have to have a basic network of, okay, yeah, I know someone that does this. Okay, yeah, I know someone. You have to be able to pick out the phone and call at least 3 people for one thing you need done. If you don't have that, you're gonna struggle. Because Ghana's not somewhere you can go online and say, okay, yeah, I need a good barber. Let me go on, even something as simple as cutting your hair. I need a good barber. Let me go and cut my hair. You'll get sent to some container somewhere in the corner. They'll make you bold. They'll finish you. Do you understand? They'll finish you. But you even have to know somebody that can advise you where to go cut your hair. So you should understand that even if you want to do bigger things than cutting your hair, where can I go buy milk? There's a brand I like. Somebody needs to tell you that. So those things start to make you realize that you need to have a network. You need to have everything you want. You need to be able to call at least 3 people and say, listen, where can I do this? If you don't have that, you're dead. So that's why I went into nightclub. It was called Shaka Zulu. It was a big success. We opened in 2012. It was a pretty big nightclub at the time. Made a lot of good contacts around that time because I was new to the country. So I was actually quite happy because it was a business that was successful and I didn't necessarily need the network at the time to get it to where it got to. But a lot went into it at the same time. A lot of marketing, a lot of word of mouth went into it at the time.
All the girls have Zulu fever, right?
I don't know what to do. I really don't know what to do.
Oh, yeah.
You do like a treat one and all of that
Yeah. I think it's best. Yeah. No. You don't. No. You don't even have to. When you come, as long as you're there, when you reserve your table, you have your table up until 12 a.m. If you come after 12, yes. So if you come after 12, we then can sell your table because we'll assume that you're not coming. If that makes sense. Yeah. So you don't have to pay a deposit.
Shaka Zulu was open, I want to say, for about a good 5 years. That was a good business. At that time in my life, it was like, again, a learning curve. You know, I started to see that living in Ghana was quite a cash intensive place. You know, everything is cash intensive. You need to pay for everything. So it was a decision as to how can you be paid where you can live. And if you also want to invest, you know, because Nightclub was never a long-term vision for me. It was just a stepping stone to revert back to my original purpose. It was an interesting time, you know, that time there, Ghana was fresh. Like, Ghana was just so many people in the country. It was a time where we had just discovered oil. I think they had discovered oil in 2011. So many people were coming into town. So it was a real cosmopolitan city at the time, you know, and that's what helped the nightclub, because you have all different types of people. You know, people that have private jet companies walk in, you have people that own drilling companies, people that own oil service companies. So it was a time to really network, you know, because it was a place everybody wanted to be. You know, we had all the stars in there. I remember I had my 26th birthday. We had Wizkid perform, we had Davido perform, and this was around the time that there was that rumor that they had some drama, you know, but they both got in a DJ booth, performed, they both sang happy birthday. Like, it was a great night, you know. I don't have any regrets about that business. After Shaka Zulu, I went on to open another club in actually Wager, which now doesn't sound like a good location, but at the time, Wager was a place where they were just about to build the biggest mall in West Africa. It still stands there today. It's called West Hills Mall. That wasn't as successful as it should have been, but the whole purpose of Spotlight was to be strategically positioned for the fact that there was going to be a lot of development happening in that side of town at that time. You know, West Hills Mall didn't go as successful as it should have, and the club still was successful. We had it open for about maybe 2.5, 3 years. Again, it was good. A different kind of crowd. It was more like a pub concept, so more like affordable. People go there for cocktails, people go there for beers and stuff, to socialize after work, network after work and stuff. So that was Spotlight.
We're going with the pub concept. So like with the gates, you know, that would be the example that we're using. Like, if you follow me, this building, we're probably in about 6 months of building, but as you can see, all the pillars have been raised. Some of the partition walls have been done, but for instance, this partition wall we're going to remove as it interferes with our bar activity. We're in a prime location. We have the main road here. To our right leads towards Cape Coast, which is our main tourist hotspot, and to our left leads to Accra Central. So I'd say this is episode 1 of Wager, City by Wager.
After Spotlight, I started to realize clubs were a very volatile business. I didn't want a business that could pay me for 2 to 5 years. I now started thinking bigger. What could pay me 5 to 10 years? It was a process. So then I said to myself, well, let me get involved in something like food, you know, because, you know, I read a book at the time and it said that people that become wealthy are people that either sell you a place to sleep, a place where you can eat, or a place where you can drink, one of the three. I'd already done the place that you can drink, but I saw that there were disadvantages to the place that you can drink because it's a short span business. So that's when I went into, okay, let me invest into the place that you can eat. So that's when I opened a Chinese franchise called Kung Food. I took that idea from the American concept Panda Express. So Panda Express was like, for those who don't know, it's like a takeaway, very quick place that you can go and eat. Like $10, you can have fried rice, prawns, or whatever. You know, I opened my first one in Loboni. 6 months after that, it was going very well. I opened one in Achimota. Then about 3 months after that, I opened one in Osu. I had them running, but then we hit we hit an African recession. And our African recession was the fact that I was importing all of my food goods from abroad, from China, and there was a Chinese restaurant. So I was importing all my food goods. There were two disadvantages. I couldn't necessarily put my face to the business. People would think, how the hell is a black African selling Chinese food? Number one. Number two, we faced a problem, I say the African recession, because the currency started fluctuating a lot. So I used to import all my goods and I used to buy them in dollars. And the whole purpose of the Kung Food product was that we sold affordable Chinese food to people. So your working class person, someone that works in the bank, somebody that works somewhere else that can afford to eat there every day. That was the purpose of it. When I started importing the foods, the cedi became weaker against the dollar. So something that may have cost me maybe 5 cedis at the time started costing me 10 cedis. So it meant that I couldn't be affordable anymore because I can't buy and then sell at the same price I got it for. So that's why I decided to close up shop with that business, because I didn't want to change the concept. If I'm setting out and my vision for that business is to sell food for, let's call it equivalent to $5, then that's what it should be. It should be $5. It should not be 10, because I can't say that I'm affordable to everybody, but then charge the same as somebody else that doesn't try to be affordable. So that's why I said, okay, cool, that business can't necessarily work. After Kung Food, I went on to nightclubs again. I reverted back to nightclubs, and me and 2 partners who are still very good friends of mine now, we decided to open a place called Mint Club. That was near the airport. Again, a very, very successful club. We joined forces. We all had experience in event management from our own corners. So putting us all 3 together was like a trifecta. It was crazy. I remember it got to a point where we considered, so Mint was on the bottom floor, then there was another space on top, and we considered opening both places at the same time because we couldn't contain the amount of people that we had in the club. We kept that open maybe for about, I want to say 2 years. I got old reminders as to why nightclub was such a volatile business, because you start getting different people opening different things, and people want a change at the end of the day. People want to change. So we moved on to different things. We all went our separate ways to do our own businesses. But again, it was a good 2.5 years that we had with each other. We're all still very good friends. We check up on each other all the time. After Mint, I then said, okay, fine. Entertainment. I started to realize entertainment was something that came natural to me. It came natural to me because, at first it was a joke. It's like, yeah, I'm going here. And then, you would go somewhere and before you know, you've got like 30 people coming to you and you can't even fit them on your table. So I started to realize it's a natural thing to me. Why ignore something that's natural to me? So I opened Level 8, which was a lounge. And that was me starting to accept that I wasn't as young as I used to be. The concept of Level 8 was, it was supposed to be like a cigar lounge / gentleman's club. Again, that was heavily based around networking. Level 8 I had open for around 2 years, and Level 8 was also because I started to realize that the people that go clubbing 3 to 4 times a week are not my age anymore. People my age are now getting married, having kids. The people that I appeal to, they weren't my client anymore. And how do you relate to somebody that's coming up? It's very hard to relate to them because the things that excite them are totally different than the things that excite you. So Level 8 was more like a long-term, okay, I want to have a lounge that I can still go. I can still invite somebody that's married. I can still invite someone that still has responsibilities. And we can talk, we can have fun, we can listen to music and drink, but just not as wild as maybe the nightclub. I would say Level 8 was my last entertainment-driven business. And after that is when I got involved in real estate. My role in the real estate is I do the procurement for the Qualis Group. Okay, so the Qualis Group is a group of companies. Okay, that's the CEOs, Nana Kwame Bediaku. Some people know him as Freedom. But I came on to do the procurement for the buildings and to do also the business development for the group of companies. Me and Freedom were good friends for a long time. We used to go to have fun in the clubs together. We were very good friends, and we had similar stories. His story was that his first business when he came to Ghana was a nightclub. Mine, one of my first businesses was a nightclub. So there was a lot of similarities that we had, which is why we became such good friends. And we didn't work together probably for about 6 to 7 years of being friends. And how we started working together was the funniest thing ever. So I was having dinner at his house, and his auntie was at the house at the time, and we're just having dinner talking about the business, whatever. And her name's Auntie Leslie. And Auntie Leslie looked and she said, well, you guys are so close, you understand each other so much. Why is it that you're not working together? And we looked at each other. It was like a eureka moment. We looked at each other and it was like, it's true. Like, I don't do nightclubs no more. So what are we doing? Why, bring somebody else in to do? Literally, that was on a Thursday. On the Monday, I came to the office. I was still a nightclub boy. So I came to the office. My suit wasn't the right suit, but it was like, I wanted to get involved. Do you understand? Because I was still a nightclub boy. So I didn't know about this corporate world. I didn't know about anything to do with corporate world. Even the way I spoke was different now to how I used to speak then. So it was a big change for me because I had never been in an office environment before. The waking up to me wasn't an issue, but it was, how you talk to people, how you engage people. It was a big change for me. That was, I would want to say, about 4 or 5 years ago. And what was crazy is that when we were working together, I still had the lounge. So we were working together Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays. I would be somewhere. Friday, I wouldn't come in until I stopped to level 8 totally, because we started getting involved in intense projects where I didn't have the time. We're traveling a lot to source materials for the buildings, and I didn't have the time to oversee the management of my lounge. So I just made an executive decision to say, look, this wasn't a long-term thing anyway. Let me move straight onto the real estate. And that's how I got into real estate, So it's been a good 5 years. I've learned a hell of a lot. It's not been easy. We've had projects that have been delayed, but they've been delayed more so because Freedom's he can come into a room and then he will say, rip apart the whole room. And we could be opening tomorrow. The guy will come and he'll say, rip apart the whole room. I don't want it. It's been a challenging 5 years, but we've found a way to kind of understand each other and be able to work together in a very productive way because we're friends at the same time. So we have to separate friends from the business. When we're in the office, we talk to each other on a business level. When we're out, we have our fun, we go out, and we talk to each other on a different level. So it's just understanding the code of business. A lot of people don't understand the code of business. Just because you're friends doesn't mean you can't do business. You can do business if you respect the code. Same with family. Family can do business, they respect the code. The moment people overstep the line of the code, you can't do business with them. I've had to, in my working experience, I've had to sack cousins, I've had to sack nieces because they didn't respect the code. Not because it doesn't mean that when we're family, when I come to you on Easter, I'm not gonna hug you and love you. I'm gonna love you the same way. But we just know that we can't work in that parameter. We just keep our family intact, because the moment you force sometimes to work with family, you're forcing to break the relationship totally. And what's the point? It's a human being. Somebody else can take that place. You don't need to force somebody to learn something that they don't want to learn. Let them do what they're going to do. Find someone that will do it, and then keep your family or keep your friend. It's understanding how important time is. That's it. The moment you understand how important time is the moment you can make a decision today that this doesn't work for me. I put that across to my personal life, my relationships, my friendships, anything related with time. A lot of people might say, I've been with someone 10 years. We've invested so much time with each other. So let's just continue. But you're not happy. So why is you're going to waste another 10 years to then hate somebody or dislike somebody that much? And what's the point? That means you don't value the time. Because if you value the time, you would accept and say to yourself, you know what? This isn't working. We've tried this, and that. It's not working. Let's go our ways. Doesn't mean we're enemies. It just means we are not compatible. And it's the same thing with business. That if things aren't working in the way that you want them to work, call a spade and move on. Because the longer you keep it, the more responsibilities you attract. Because if you're in a business that, I mean, a lot of people say, look, by the end of the day, if you have a dream, then pursue your dream, no matter how long it takes. Your dream has 10 different routes to get to the same dream. 10 different routes. Do you understand? It doesn't mean that you have to keep on going down the M25 because the M25 will get you there. You can also take the A1. You can take the M6. You can take so many different other routes to get to the same result. Do you understand? So that's where people get it mixed up, where, oh no, this is my dream, so I'm gonna do it. Okay, fine. But if your dream, for instance, is to be a rapper, okay, it's because you like the music industry. Maybe you don't rap. Maybe become a producer. Maybe become management. Maybe become a tour manager. It's still the same industry, but just you found something that's you're good at. And that's why I was able to make the decision to say that my time is done. My time is done here. Let me move on to something else because of that. What inspires me the most is turning something from nothing to something. That's what inspires me the most. I can look at cooking and be inspired, literally. You look at the vegetables, you look at the chicken, you look at the fish, and you see the end product of it. Everything in life that was nothing and it's turned into something is what inspires me. And that's why I'm so inspired by building, because building is something that nobody can see it until it exists. And that's when they appreciate it. And that's like anything. Do you understand? Anybody's vision, when you turn nothing into something, that's the most inspiring part. Now, in terms of having fun is just as important, if not more important, than the work that you do. That is that simple. A lot of people like to lie to themselves and say, oh, I work too much. Oh, I don't have time because I'm working. It's nonsense. Because I don't compromise on my fun. It's that simple. Anybody that knows me knows I don't compromise on my fun. I don't compromise on my fun because that doesn't define who you are. Do you understand? It just means you have accepted or you appreciate your work-play balance. That's it. You appreciate your work-play balance. So fine, you've had a long week. Yes, I am going to the club. I don't care if I'm past 30. I don't care if I'm supposed to be married. I don't care if I'm supposed to be whatever. It's my terms. Who are you to tell me that because I'm past 30, I can't go to a club? Who makes the rules? Is there a sign at the front of the club that says age 19 to 24? There's no sign. So who are you now to make the rule? You see, so I do it because it allows me to let my hair down, to make me continue to feel young. Because continuing to feel young allows me to still go out there and take risks. That's what it does. People don't understand that code. People just think that when you get to a certain age, you should be doing a certain something. But there's no rules on how you live your life. Everybody has a different story. Everybody. What might work for me may not work for the person next door. I'm not saying it will. But my fun, that's what I like to do. So the balance is what allows me to appreciate. Because at the end of the day, I see it that if I go out and I'm having too much fun, I pause and I'm like, whoa, let me get back to the thing that enabled me to be able to afford to have this fun. Don't forget about that. A lot of people do. You see it, a lot of superstars, they forget what allows them to afford the fun that they love. And then they go downhill because they don't balance. I want to be remembered as somebody that basically lived life on their own terms, was good to people, inspired people, and also encouraged people to be able to be more against stereotypes. Because we have stereotypes, and I keep on saying it in a lot of things, that especially us as blacks, that we have a stereotype that we can only run, we can only sing, we can only dance. Those are the three things. Or we can box. We can only be entertainers. We can only be on the front stage. Do you understand? But then the people that are the bosses of these entertainers that we don't see are worth times 100 what the entertainers were. So to me, it's still slavery. It's still slavery. It's just that you're just a well-paid slave. That's it. But are you the person that is contributing to the economy? Are you the person that is creating jobs for people? Are you the person that is saying that, no, I don't want my race to be seen this way? I want them to be seen that way. Are you that person? And I want to contribute to that, or be one of the contributors to that. My quote would be, stay ahead so you don't have to catch up. That's my number one quote, because catching up is the most tiring thing you can ever do. Trying to catch up, it's the worst. And I don't even necessarily mean catching up with other people. It could be catching up with yourself, because there are people today that are 45, that have had their kids, but they haven't pursued the dreams that they wanted to pursue. And now they're trying to catch up with themselves for the things and decisions they didn't take 10, 15 years ago. So when I say stay ahead so you don't have to catch up, it's not necessarily to somebody else, it's to yourself. One book I would definitely advise anybody that wants to get involved, and I don't want to say real estate, I want to say business in general, is Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. That is one. Read that book 3 times. Don't read it once. You won't understand it the first time. Read a book like 3 times, and then things will start to make sense. My name is Darren Bond. You have now seen the wonders that got me here today.